Welcome to the Financial Planners South Africa podcast, a show dedicated to driving the positive evolution of financial advice, specifically in South Africa. To join a global community of financial advisors, sharing and learning with one another to drive the positive evolution of financial advice, head to xyadvisor.com. Portfolio Metrics is thrilled to bring you this podcast in support of our common passion, people, and the evolution of wealth management. Our global business links precision investment management to expert financial advice through partnerships and technology. Portfolio Metrics is an authorized financial services provider. AssetMap is a proud sponsor of this podcast. Are you looking for the next big thing in advisor technology? AssetMap is used by thousands of financial advisors to help create more meaningful conversations with clients. See for yourself how AssetMap is leading the next phase of financial advice delivery. Learn more at asset-map.com/Louis for a special listeners discount. This episode is proudly brought to you by Alan Gray. They say it's important to live for today. Although that might be true, we can't forget to plan for tomorrow. There's a lot of it left, after all. Alan Gray is an authorized financial services provider. Visit www.alangray.co.za to learn how we build long-term wealth for clients. Welcome to another episode of Financial Planners South Africa. Today I have in the studio with me Mariette Tappan. Mariette is Africa's first certified financial transitionist and has been a role model for a lot of financial advisors, myself included. Mariette, thank you so much for joining us today.
Well, it's a pleasure being here, and I want to firstly congratulate you on being, I think, this third financial transitionist planner in Africa. And I am so excited to grow this community and to find out, how meaningful this is in your practice and how do you do it. So well done. Well done.
Thank you, Mariette. I'm looking forward to today's conversation because I think we can go into a little bit more of the nuts and bolts of what a certified financial transitionist does and how it came about, the work that Susan Bradley has brought to Africa. But before we get there, we'd like to have a little bit of a backstory of how Mariette got into financial services.
Louis, it's that old story, and I think people that might have heard me talk previously would know that this was going to be the last thing that I do. But they say never. And I think it boiled down to the fact that I was in transition at that point in time. I had had my first child. And the partner that I was working for in the firm passed away. So so it was actually my advisor that said to me, Langif, he called me that, and so he says, you will be a very good advisor. So I went for interviews with a couple of firms, and I then the 1st of July 1993 I joined Liberty in a career I said I would never pursue. And now, 30 years later, I would say that the industry served me well. It has kept me humble, and I've learned a lot about people. And I think every financial advisor that I've worked with or of my colleagues, one of the main reasons I think we join the industry is because we care about people. We're people's people.
That's definitely a theme that we've heard quite a few of the guests talk about, that caring gene and how it's important to focus on the human side. So within the Financial Transitionist Institute, we focus quite a bit on not only the technical side, but also the personal side of financial planning. What was that kind of pulling magnet for you towards that? Or how did you stumble upon the Transitionist Institute to begin with?
I think as financial planners, we tend to have conversations with our clients, and we deal with quite a lot of what's going on in their lives. But I think formally we haven't, upskilled ourselves to really talk to our clients during very difficult situations. And mostly clients approach us when there's a life change. Either there's a death in the family, or there's a retirement, or there's a sale of a business, or there's a divorce, or there's a new child. And so in my case, I dealt with five people that died, in my client base. And I just thought that there should be, I can do better than just, going to them with, okay, well, you're going to be okay with your finances, let's starting about that. Because I found that they were not in a good space. And sometimes I didn't know what to tell them, and I didn't know how to have the conversation. So I decided that I wanted to be more for my clients, and then I stumbled across the organization through the Strength Finder Gallup meeting which we had, and that was it was like I found home, because it's really something I think the industry is lacking, is that extra set of skills that we need, because when you work with people and money, it is their behavior towards money that actually moves them in the direction and help them make decisions, or might it be good or bad. But I was adamant that I wanted to have better tools to be able to have these conversations and move my clients to make better decisions.
So, Mariette, are you saying that, during times when someone might not fit in the normal financial planning process, we need to bring in other tools to work with them? Mitch Anthony talks about up to 53 different life transitions that someone can go through. But what you're saying is that these people might not be ready for the normal financial planning process. Am I getting that right?
That's true. And as planners, we want to solve. We immediately want to jump in and talk about the best plan, the best solution. We want to do the business. That is how, previously, that's how I learned. You have to write a certain amount of cases. You have to do this. You have to perform. Well, we need to, or want to, or had to perform. The client sometimes, is not ready to do what we want them to do. And sometimes, we don't listen to what they actually really need. And, we might be instrumental to, that client leaving us at the end of the day, because, we don't really sit down and find out what is actually happening in their life. And I think in doing so, we do the client injustice. We do our I would say, our industry of what we need to do. We do it. It's we don't get to the real point. So a client might want do what you need to do for them, but I think if you take a step back and really put the client on a pedestal and listen to really what they want and what they don't want, it's also a very good way to make sure that you land up with clients that is in your fit, especially in the beginning. I think we land up with clients that we actually should not have.
I want to talk a little bit more about that. Rushing into a relationship with a new client, almost wanting to fix something because we have this tool set. Oh, Mr. Client, you need to invest in this portfolio. We can solve that. What's the antidote? How do we approach this better to determine a good financial planner and a client fit?
I think you first have to know yourself well. You have to decide what is your value system, what works for you, with who do you work best, and almost identify your ideal client. Might it be through an interest that you have, or might it be the way that you do things? Because we are all different. And I think that is what makes relationships so unique, is that, people, are normally drawn to somebody like you. But, if you don't know what is most important to you and with who do you want to work, you would just, take on everybody and anybody. And just later on, having the hardship of relationship that doesn't work, or, misunderstanding and miscommunication. So, and I think then to really have a format in which you have got your client interview, that you speak to them, ask them questions, and really find out if, there's tick boxes that we all can tick. And we see the red flags, we feel them, and we still, just go ahead and do things which we know at that point in time I shouldn't have I shouldn't have taken on this client, or I shouldn't have written this policy. So I think one has got to really trust your gut feel, but I think know what you are, what you want, and who do you want to work with. I never used a monetary criteria, because I think although money is important, I think money always comes with the right actions. So, that's my take on that. But I think, especially today, where technology plays such a big role, and clients can find out, where to get what and do things themselves. These conversations needs to be more and intense, and there must be a direction. There must be almost an agreement on this is why we have got a relationship. And I think our communication preference tool actually addressed that very, very well, just by knowing, well, if the client wants detail, you're not a detail type of person, something is not going to work along the line.
So that being open and honest and having a conversation around what is the value that you bring, and is that a good match with your clients? In the early days of starting out as a financial advisor, were you forced to take on clients that you didn't want to, or were you in a position where you maybe just, had to take them on because you had capacity?
I think when I started in the industry, it was like you were too glad to have a client, and, and if they say yes, it was a great thing. Well, I think the industry has changed a little bit, but in the beginning, I think one is a little bit forced to take on businesses. It's also a learning curve. I think you don't know everything in the beginning. So I think it comes with trial and tribulation. But if I had to do my life over as a financial advisor, I would have walked away from all business. I actually did that, after 2 years. I had to clean up my act after I received a meager check of 123 Rand and having to decide, am I staying or going? But yeah, so, anybody that is new in the industry, it's difficult to survive with the type of remuneration system that we have. And I think if one upskill yourself with more conversational and the behavior side of finance, the neuroscience of finance, I think the clients would value more to pay for a consultancy fee and not just only a policy fee or a commission. I think
Mariette,
that should maybe get rid of that.
Thank you. How do you position your service to your clients now? What are the words that you use to describe what you do?
I think I do things different in any event, So, my message is subtle in terms of, I listen, I care, and, I do have this extra skill and qualification that differentiate me from other financial advisors. But I think to be just yourself and to show the interest to the client that you really mean that you've got their best interest at heart. And, with the knowledge of the qualifications, because I think people need to know that that you need to know your things. You need to be well educated in the technical side. But, I think the value of, experience, and then also other skills that you equip yourself with to show that you really mean that you want to help them in the best way that possible, is how I position myself. I ask a lot of questions, and I don't necessarily in the beginning, show and tell all my qualifications. I get referred to clients most of the time, so I think that is also valuable. One is in the business so that people can tell their friends about you and the experience that they have that's different.
I love how you talk about, the technical side, a wealth of experience, because personally, I don't believe 3 years is sufficient to then, just go out and become a financial planner, but then also the training on the human side. And now we have a few options. We have George Kinder's registered life planning side. We have the Transitionist Institute. We have Money Quotient in America. Do you think there's sufficient options for someone, once they've become a certified financial planner, to kind of build their skills in the personal side?
Yeah, sure. I do believe so. And I think there's more and more organizations, even some of the traditional organizations, which within the training material is focusing more, and realize that, the way people do business and the way people think about finance and making financial decisions is changing. So yeah, I think there's definitely, I think, where the Transitional Institute is a pioneer in this particular field of business. A lot more attention is being given, and I'm very glad about that, because I think it is just the right thing to do. I think the technical side is important, but people make wrong decisions.
Yeah, it almost took a pandemic for us to realize how important this is and the kind of worth that we can bring to our clients. I want you to share a little bit of the actual process that you take a client through that's gone through a major life transition. What is it that you do with them if it's not the normal financial planning route?
If I could take, just a recent example of a client that went through, transition in terms of, a loved one passing away. I think we all, come to the appointment with a feeling of empathy and a feeling of, I'm really very sorry about what happened to you, but how can I help you next? So I think how I take my clients through the process is really just to be there for them and to listen and to let them tell them their story. And also to monitor, in what state are they in, because they could be really in a state of numbness, they could be in a state of fractured mindedness, and, you want to make sure that the client is actually calm, and that is part of the most important work that we do is to really hold the client's heart at heart and listen to them and make them feel safe in our conversation. And then sometimes I would not even continue with the conversation, in terms of taking it further, but using methods to naming and framing, to maybe address difficult things, difficult matters that needs to take place, like, for instance, a policy that needs to be, or a form that needs to be completed. I would take them through a very short process of now, soon, and later, which really calms them down and minimize the overwhelm that they might feel. And then just hold their hand and be there for them. I would go back to the way that we've agreed we will communicate when we meet. So these are it depends very much on the client where they are at. But I think the importance is to get the client to be fully present and to get their cognitive thinking back to where it's supposed to be.
So even though you might be listening quite a lot in this meeting and you might be quiet, underneath the surface, there's a lot going on. You're monitoring for that person's state. You're listening for the things that they might not be saying. You're looking for the things that they're avoiding. How's the Transitionist Institute help you to frame this and bring structure to that?
Well, the first thing is that most financial planners, and there's some research being done on that, talks too much. So I think the skill to keep quiet and really listen with the deep listening skills that I've acquired is something that has helped a lot, because you listen to the things which is not said. And mostly, sometimes the client doesn't even know that some underlying other, things that keeps them up at night. They don't sometimes think about it. So you really have to give them the time through questioning, to let them also, think about those things that is really bothering them. And while I think we do active listening as financial planners mostly, the deep listening skills by having these awkward, quiet moments really gives the client time to also think about what we're talking about, and some valuable information, comes out in that process, because that actually gives you an anchor as to how you then solve for the issues that you hear. And sometimes, as I say, while having this conversation, the client actually discovers some of the things which they, would not normally think about, but it comes to the surface. It's there, but, by verbalizing certain things, I wouldn't say we're a therapist in that sense of way, but, when you talk about things and when you voice them, it becomes clear. You get a certain amount of clarity about your feelings or, what you want to do. So I think that has helped. And you of just recently that completed your training would know that part of the exam where you are part of a deep listening process is daunting. Because, even myself and, when you have these deeper conversations with clients, things can become uncomfortable. But I am a strong believer that if you do not get to the bottom line of why a person is making certain decisions, then how can you get the advice to stick, like Moira Summers, talks about in her book? And I think it's mostly to do with the fact that we assume sometimes, or we don't get to the real bottom line of a reason. It could, it could be many things.
Mariette, for advisors that might be struggling, to keep quiet, what are the tips that you can maybe share with them to start the process of engaging or listening at a deeper level?
Yeah, I think it is just to keep quiet and to hold those quiet moments and take a deep breath. Breathing is a very good technique. And I think to be practicing mindfulness before you go into a meeting with a client, to make sure that you are absolutely tuned into the meeting, the client, to check in with yourself. How are you feeling? In what space are you? Because sometimes, we could have had a difficult conversation before we meet with a client, or we could just have a bad day. So I think, just to really check in with, are you fully present, and, are you 100% focused on the client, and then having to ask the right questions and be very curious about the client's situation will help. It has helped me. And then to really be empathetic. One's body language, you've got to check in. You can see what is the client like, and even if we use Zoom, I don't think that one can still be very aware of the client's body language and the client's state of mind when you meet.
I love how you started off saying, just do it. But then actually there's these real practical things. And it reminds me of advisors and, people in general that are suffering from burnout. We're not creating enough space. We're not practicing enough self-care. What are the things that Mariette does to practice self-care that you could maybe share with us as a guideline for other financial advisors?
Well, I think, what has helped me a lot is, to do mindful practice, on a regular basis. And, the self-care that we can do is we need to sleep. Everybody would tell you that. You need to sleep. You need to eat well. You need to do your exercises. You need to breathe. Meditation is a great way to, to be forcing yourself into a space of calm. And I walk a lot. I love the outdoors. So, just by taking a mindful walk for 20 minutes when you feel it's just too much, or on a daily basis, but actually taking more regular breaks during the day, especially if you have a very, very loaded day. I think, one has got to realize that our bandwidth with this COVID and with dealing with a lot of uncertainty and changes and challenges has really had an impact on one. And I can say very, very honestly that, these days where my bandwidth is just absolutely depleted. So, that's what I do. I'm a spiritual person. So, those are things that helps me a lot to also, and gratefulness is a huge thing. I think one has got to wake up in the morning and even during the day, just find something to really be grateful for. And then to reflect. I think we tend to just, take it one day after the other day after the other day. And I think we need to stand still and ask ourselves, okay, well, so what worked well for me today? What didn't go so well? What am I going to do tomorrow to make it better? And I think the tiny habits that one gets to adopt is what makes you different. And there's some good habits and there's some bad habits. So, but I think to actually, just be aware of the things that is not making you the best you that you can be, and to take the time to do a little bit of inner research, will make you a better. You will just, I think that I would just rock up there as a better person for my client, instead of being tired and frustrated and actually, So that's, I think one has got to watch yourself.
Yeah, it's this foundation of almost wellness and flourishing, so that you can become a better person, but then at the same time a better financial advisor or financial planner for your clients.
In our industry or in finance, we have to remember that this is just one of many parts that will make you flourish in terms of your well-being. And a lot is being said nowadays also, about financial wellness and well-being, and there's a difference between the two. So I think as I talk to my clients certainly about the wheel of life and about all the other aspects of their lives, because the one impacts the other. So unfortunately, or fortunately for us that is in the industry, that one of the biggest aspects that impacts on one's life is money. So I think what we do for our clients is exceptionally important. And coming back to the human side of financial planning, and how we can better impact the financial decisions that clients make, and even having the conversations about money, which a lot of people steer away from.
Mariette, how do we keep our boundaries when it comes to clients? A lot of this work, it feels like the clients can become really dependable or dependent on us as financial advisors to make decisions on their behalf, to do things, and sometimes we could cross those boundaries. Tell us a little bit how you have managed to, control the boundaries.
Well, I think the protocol that I've learned from the Institute, by calming the client down, and secondly, giving the client a good overview after they've calmed down and sat down with him, and then to start with the planning process when they are ready, is actually to give the work back to them. They need to go and do certain things. They need to go and think about the plan. So there's a few things that I think one normally did for the client, and you want to really be be everything for your client. But I think the importance to make the client part of the planning process and giving them the responsibility about their own money is what will definitely create those boundaries. Because so I think I've in sometimes thought to myself, I think I do care more for my client, for this particular client, that they care for themselves. And I think we feel that way because, we're so passionate about what we do, and we can see that there's a problem. And every time we get to the client, their situation is just the same or it's deteriorated. And, we want to solve for that again. And we want to actually go out of what we are actually supposed to be doing. But it brings me back to the previous conversation or the previous point that we spoke about, and that is that you've got to know you've got to position yourself well with the client. What do I do, and what do you do, and what is expected of both of us, because we are in a relationship. It's not just a one-sided thing here. So I think those conversations with the clients is actually very important, up front and after concluding a particular, call it a change of life situation, is, this is what happened, this is what I'm going to do next, and that is what you need to do next. And keep the client accountable, but also obviously yourself accountable. But, I think we must do less. We must give advice, but the client must do more.
I think a lot of this comes with experience. It comes with knowing, okay, what are the proper boundaries? What is my role as an advisor? What am I doing? What am I not doing? Because at the beginning of my career, I certainly felt like I want to do as much as possible because I don't want to have a client say no, and just getting comfortable knowing what it is that I need to spend my time on has really been valuable for me.
Yeah, but I think it comes down to that first appointment or that conversation where you really get to know the client, and the three questions that we that helps us in that conversation is, what do you want to protect most, and if you have that conversation about knowing what the client wants to protect, you can also build into that conversation. And you then know what is important for the client. So if you're then talking about the boundaries, it is easy to refer back to what is most important and what you want to protect most. So you can quickly, enforce those boundaries because you know what is then important. And then the next question would be, what do you need to let go of? So by asking that question, you then, once again, it's a boundary question. Have you kept to that? What do you need to? What doesn't serve you anymore when you went through this transition? And what did you leave? It might be leaving a house. It might be letting go of a relationship, or letting go of whatever it is. But it keeps the conversation and the boundaries intact with what is important to the client. And, then the third question would be, what do you want to create more? And what do you need to create anew? So once again, if you know the answer to those questions, and you've gone through a very good conversation with your client, you can say, hey, but this wasn't what you told me you were going to do or implement. And it is then not, it's not a sort of like you're not a judge, but you are with them in this process.
Yeah, almost a support and not just a accountability partner, someone that's going to help you and guide you through that process.
Yeah. Because how do you get to where you want to be? There's always certain things that you need to put in place, and there's a price to pay for everything. And you need to be having these conversations, because otherwise, how do you keep the boundaries?
This type of work must take up a lot of time and a lot of energy. And like we said, you need to prepare for it. You can't just, show up. How do we balance serving a client base, but yet also do this work and be available for clients when they need us?
That is a difficult question, because I think depending on the type of personality and person that we're all different, as I said in the beginning. But I think that the type of work that we do, and a lot is being said about financial coaching and, financial therapists, and there's all sorts of names that is creeping up, and that speaks to the time and effort that we put in that needs to be remunerated in a different type of way. So I think a combination of consultancy fees and assets under management is a way to monitor that, because there's no other way. Our time is valuable, and the difference that we make is not tangible. So I think there's also a lot to say about education, and to illustrate the value that the type of work that we do, in addition to just making sure that the figures and the planning is correct, is valued, and people will be prepared to pay for it. But I think that is still not 100% where I think the industry is. So I certainly will try and make this one of my, I wouldn't say missions, but the communication about the value at the end of the day for helping clients making better decisions. And it is a different way of doing things. And I think there's a huge value to that, because clients stick to their financial planning in difficult times, in ups and downs, and you can't measure that with money.
That's so true. I mean, a lot has been said about the value of advice, but we tend to measure it in basis points, and we tend to measure it in investment performance, yet that's only one piece of financial planning, and even a very small piece of someone's maybe life plan or transitionist plan. What do you see as the main value of advice?
Well, let's take an example of wanting to buy a car. Everybody, or a lot of my young clients, when they get their first paycheck, they want to buy a car, or it's buying a house, or it's a financial commitment. The question then is, do I go and I walk into the first car dealer and buy the smartest, best car, or do I have a conversation with somebody that has recently bought a car, or a car dealer principal that is really knowledgeable about the type of car that you buy? At the end of the day, if I just went into buying my car with my whims and wills, not really finding out the fuel consumption, the premiums in terms of insurance that I would have to pay, the fact that the parts are very expensive. At the end of the day, that would be I could have made a better decision by having a conversation with somebody that is knowledgeable, that can show these blind spots to me, which I haven't even thought about. And in that process, help me maybe buy a different car that serves me better, with maybe a better fuel consumption and a better resale value. So I think financial advice is no different. That is how I see it. There's a lot of things that we don't think about. But when you do speak to an advisor who is knowledgeable, who has these conversations, finding out what is important to you, can steer you in a direction which would make a difference, and it can save you money or can get you to a place faster than maybe you would have done it in your own.
I love how you phrase that, Mariette. It's not just about making a decision; it's making a decision that serves you best, one that's in your best interest. Even though you might still be the one making the decision, you have the support, you have the knowledge, you have someone shining a light on the blind spots.
Yeah, I think it's really about the blind spots, and I think being authentic about what you know and what you don't know, and then also feeling safe with an advisor or with somebody that is knowledgeable, without feeling, oh well, I don't know anything about this, I might be scared to ask a silly question, and the terminology that we use in financial planning is in any case so confusing. So how do you actually make it easy for the client to understand, what the value of this particular decision or this advice that you're giving them would have for them on the longer term? I think that's also important, that the understanding that we speak on a level and we give advice so that for that particular client who is maybe not so technical, not so knowledgeable, is meaningful, understandable, and educational.
I would add digestible to that.
Yes, as well.
So, Mariette, you recently moved to Adviceworx after a very long time with Liberty Life. Tell us about the decision-making and the thought process getting to that point, if you don't mind sharing that.
I think the answer to that is that I'm a person that is constantly wanting to reinvent myself. I want to stay relevant. I want to be better for my clients. I think with technology and the change in the industry, it is becoming, in my mind, more important to be able to give advice from an independent point of view. And I had a wonderful career with Liberty Life, but there comes a point that one has got to make a decision. What do you want, and how do you see the industry going forward for the next 10, 15 years that I can do this work as an advisor, as a transitionist planner, and enjoy my work, because after so many years in the industry, I don't want to use the Afrikaans word, you become langtand. So I think one should not be scared to change and to move, but the main reason for me to move was to offer my clients, a bigger variety of offerings, to be seen as independent and objective, and to be able to incorporate, technology in such a way that, that I can spend more time with my clients. I wanted to free myself up to do the things that I think we as advisors get to do as, the least, and that is to spend time with our clients because we're too busy with all the administration and compliance that goes with it. So the support and the technology, the teamwork, and the offering was for me was talking to my values and to what I want to offer my clients going forward.
I think that's so true. I mean, we can spend so much time working on the business that we don't work in the business. We don't get to serve our clients. What has been the most surprising thing that happened through this process?
Louis, the fact that I have built so many amazing relationships with clients has made my process, go much faster and smoother. Because, it is the time and the effort, the trust relationships that one builds that will sustain your practice going forward. Because things change and, people make mistakes, things go wrong. But if you walk your talk and if you are there for clients in bad times and in good times, and you make these huge decisions, which has taken me a lot of time to find a good fit and to be able to leave behind what I was used to was a major decision. But I'm so thankful for my clients and the relationships that I have with them. That has made this process much easier. I've also learned that going through transition is very difficult. So, it's one thing to be able to hold a client's hand when they go through transition, but this time, this was myself going through this transition, and one realized there's things that can go wrong, and my mind became fractured. I was numb at some point in time, and then by actually practicing what you preach within your own changing scenario was for me very meaningful. And it gave me a lot of new understanding and compassion for other clients that is going through transition. So I said to myself, well, I never thought that I was going to study to become a certified financial transitionist, but now I'm practicing it on myself. I think I did it to help myself better. So, but yeah.
What a wonderful way to upskill and kind of just test the knowledge. I don't think it's ever an easy thing for clients to go through, and just having that awareness of what you're going through and knowing, when to make decisions and when not to make decisions, I think probably was a very critical piece.
Yeah. I think in life we must be very careful to not, to accept mediocrity, because if you accept it, you deserve it. And it's on all levels of life. I think one's got to be, there's one thing I've learned in the COVID time in my life, and that is that, there's no time to waste. And the brevity of life has taught me to be more cognizant and aware of the things which is important to me, and to do less of the things which is really not serving me. And so I think, to say that I want to play the piano, or I want to go overseas, or I want to do this, just do it, because tomorrow might be too late. And to live in the now is something which I have found to be very valuable, because there was, if I had to think about tomorrow and all the things that need to be done, I would sit and maybe not do it, because it's sometimes really overwhelming. And so I hope that answers your question.
It does, and it's wonderful to hear how you've made this your own, and how you've said it's actually helped you craft your life and what's important to you. Surely this can't be all the financial services industry. What role has your family and friends helped you play to develop this?
You're talking specifically the transition from, after so many years. Well, in life, it is not what you know, but who you know and who you surround yourself with, that and who supports you. So My family, my children were very supportive of what I did. My clients were very understanding and excited for me. As a matter of fact, everybody that I spoke to. But once again, if you have a authentic, good relationship with your clients over years, and that's where I think trust comes in. I talk to them about my ambitions, my vision, how important certain things are for me, and the values that I have, and how I love to be in nature, and how I think that one must focus on living really a life that you leave a legacy with. What would people say on when on your funeral? So these things have always been important to me. So I'm not I wouldn't say I'm a philosophical person, but I'm a deep person. So yes. My clients supported me, my family supported me, my friends supported me. But at the end of the day, you need to go through it yourself. So the buck stops with you. But without that support, without support in one's life in any event, I think, one is not an island, and one needs to nurture the love, the relationship you have with whoever you come across, always say that when you leave a conversation or when you meet a person, you must always make them feel better than before they met with you or had a conversation with you. So,
Mariette, that is certainly true of today's conversation. And I want to wish you all the best of luck with this new chapter that you're moving into. If someone wants to reach out to you to maybe talk about the transitionist planning or just pick your brain, what's the best place to reach out?
Well, they can find me on my website, which is Mariette Tappan, .co.za. All my details are on there, and some of the articles I write is on there. Or they can find me on LinkedIn. They can find me on Twitter. Not that I'm so active on that, but you can find me on LinkedIn and on my website. I think that's the quickest way to find me.
Brilliant. Thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you so much, Louis. It was great having this conversation.